is A to Z with Mark Zinno, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, where today I tell you there's big and small. Welcome in. We are live here on this Monday, a huge Monday, as the Braves take on the New York Mets in a three-game series for all the not all the marbles, just it feels like all the marbles. It's going to be an awesome three-game set coming up at Truist. Appreciate you guys joining me here on this Monday. Give us a follow on Twitter at LockedOnATL. Of course, I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. This segment of our show brought to you by Sports Card Investor. And I want to take a deep dive into this series between the Mets and the Braves. That'll take up most of the show today. Also, a bit of NFL news that came out over the weekend that has got me blaming the side that put the news out there. I'll tell you what that is coming up. But again, three-game series, Mets, Braves, Truist Park. It all goes down tonight. It is going to be the most watched, most bet on, if you're into that thing, series of the first half at this point in time, because who would have thought we were going to be here just 6 short weeks ago? It was May 31st, and the Atlanta Braves were 10.5 games out of first. It is now July 11th, and they are a mere game and a half out of first place. They've made up 9 games in basically 6 weeks, and we have a series that could decide who is in first place by the time we reach the All-Star break. And if you would have told anybody that this was possible, that when you looked at the schedule back in the middle of May, that the final homestand of the first half against the New York Mets was going to mean this much, most people would have told you you were crazy. That all said, I think it is super important to sort of stay grounded about this series. Look, all eyeballs across Major League Baseball and the sports world are going to be looking at this series because there's nothing else going on right now. Not even hockey is done, obviously. Wimbledon just finished. There's no major golf tournament going on. Like this is what we're here for on this Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So this is a huge, huge series that's going to have a lot of eyeballs, and it should be treated like a playoff series. It should feel a little bit like a playoff series as these two rivals meet each other. The Yankees and Red Sox were on Sunday Night Baseball. That's got nothing compared to what the Mets and Braves are right now. Like Mets and Braves right now, this series is what Yankees Red Sox felt like 15 years ago. Every time they played, it was huge. So all of that is surrounding this, but I don't want fans to get kind of emotional about this. While it would be great to end up in first place, while it would be great to take 2 out of 3, losing 2 out of 3 or even getting swept does not change what this team is and how far that they have come. I hope we see some great pitching matchups. I hope we see lineups go back and forth. I hope we see a ton of excitement. I hope we see a lot of high leverage situations across the board, because so much was made of who the Braves beat to get here, right? Like during the winning streak, there were so many people saying, oh, what they're doing it against the Pirates and the Reds and the Rockies. Oh, they're not good teams. Like, who cares? What did I tell you back then? The Braves did not choose their schedule at that point in time. So guess what? This is what they had to play, and they took advantage of it. They beat the teams they're supposed to beat. And even after the winning streak was over, I told you, who cares who they beat anymore? Just continue to win games. That's what's important. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Great, you swept the Nats over the weekend. You had a little bit of a ankle biter there at the end. But no, who cares? Right? Just win games. As I said repeatedly, the Yankees are like 750 games over 500. Is anybody complaining about who they beat? No, because they beat everybody. Just go out and win games. That's all that matters. But the real thing about how the Braves got here and how they're in this position, I think, is more important to focus on than necessarily the macro picture, because there's a lot to it. And I think it speaks to the one thing I've talked about repeatedly is how they're going to win another World Series. And I will tell you how they got here in just a moment. But first, a word from our friends at Sports Card Investor. Whether you're a casual card collector like I was as a kid, or you are looking for an alternative investment opportunity, the free Sports Card Investor app has something for you. Now, if you're somebody who wants to figure out this business, you can just start to look at the young prospects coming up, breakout stars, Check out the value of deals on guys like Adley Rushman or Jeremy Pena, or you can be nostalgic. Go look at some of the older players, or maybe you have some old cards. You want to find out what the value of those old cards could be, what they're worth today, or if you're just interested in getting into sports cards and find great deals on your favorite players right now. The Sports Card Investor app has it all. It's completely free. It's easy to browse over 600,000 cards from every sport with hundreds more added each week. You can check out the latest values of your favorite cards with a 7-day or 30-day chart and find the best prices and buy directly through the app or with our eBay deals. Download the Sports Card Investor app today. Available for free in the Google Play and Apple app stores, or go to sportscardinvestor.com/locked on. All right. How did the Braves get here? I want to get to that in a second, but it's worth noting, by the way, this sneaky little move that Alex Anthopoulos pulled off last night that if you weren't paying attention to, well, yeah, it made me smile. The Atlanta Braves traded with the San Diego Padres cash for minor league player Robinson Cano. Yeah, that Robinson Cano. The one who played second base for the Mets, the one who the Mets are currently paying most of his $24 million salary for. He is now an Atlanta Brave and in the minors. And my expectation is that he's going to be called up for this series, whether it's for a goof, whether it's to stick it to the Mets, or whether it's because Orlando Arcia and Phil Gosselin pretty much stink as of late. I think you'll actually probably see him. Could be wrong. And Dave O'Brien of The Athletic pointed it out, and I think it's great. That it wouldn't shock him to see him in Atlanta in a uniform against the Mets. It has to make you chuckle. Like the timing of it to me, while Alex Anthopoulos may claim it's coincidental that they're just playing the Mets at this point in time, yeah, it could be coincidental, but it's probably not. Why? Because it's always fun to stick it to your rival, right? Like it's always fun to give him a little, give him a little bit of the business, and that's what AA does. And I don't think this signals anything, by the way, about Ozzie Albies' return later on this year. This isn't like, I know it's a big name, and he was a very good player and a multi-time All-Star years ago, but he's in his late 30s. Who knows what his range is at second anymore? Who knows how much pop is left in the bat? Well, I still think he's a pretty good hitter, even though the numbers haven't bared that out yet this year. Nonetheless, I don't think it says anything about Albies' condition because there's no reason to expect Ozzie back before September anyway. Now, could it be like this is the extra insurance that they want? Veteran presence who's had playoff experience before, because ultimately all these moves go into what I have routinely been saying over the course of the past week about winning a World Series in back-to-back years and how difficult it is, and especially how much they're going to need to do it differently this year than they did last year. So Cano could be part of that as well. All right, we come back. How did the Braves get here, and why is that so important, and how will it help them going forward? I'll explain that next right here on A to Z on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Search Locked. Welcome back to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Search Locked On Sports Atlanta. This segment of our show brought to you by Athletic Greens. Want to remind you guys to give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On ATL. Of course, I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Make sure you check out all the great shows here on the Locked On Sports Atlanta network. This is A to Z. Of course, you have Hitting Hard with John Chuckery, ATL Day Ones with Jarvis Davis and Tanitra Batiste. Our Braves postcast after every Braves game, so make sure you check those out, especially after these huge 3 games against the New York Mets. Don't forget about Locked On Hawks and Locked On Falcons, all right here on the Locked On Sports Atlanta network. Over 2,000 subscribers here, guys, in just 2 short months that we've been doing this, or 2.5 short months. Actually, it was about 2 short months when we hit 2,000. But you guys have been great out there. Thanks so much for the support. Continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, thumbs up, share all the content that you see on social media. We certainly appreciate the support and the love. And tell a friend that this is the best place for some great content on all of your Atlanta sports news. Okay, back to the Braves and the New York Mets. 3-game series tonight. Max Scherzer versus Max Fried. It's getting maxed out. Yes, I'm being dad joke corny, but who cares? How did the Braves get here? And how they got here, I think, is really boils down to 5 specific things. Max Fried being in the rotation. And Max Fried is the kind of starter that when you give the ball to every 5th day, keeps you afloat, right? I mean, he is the guy that when you're not playing well, every fifth day gives you a chance to win and separates what would be a 3 or 4 game losing streak to a just 1 or 2 game losing streak, right? Hence why the Braves for the first 2 months of the season didn't win more than 2, but didn't lose more than 2 in a row. It's because of Max Fried, right? It's that sort of anchor. And I use Justin Verlander as a similar comparison. He's 11-0 this year. If he is just mediocre, I shouldn't even say mediocre, like above average at 7-4, and the numbers are a little bit different, are the Astros that far in first place? No. Do they feel like they're that powerful of a team? No. They feel much more back to earth. And I know it's only 4 games from a record standpoint, but it's more than that. It really is. If he had just pitched above average as opposed to 11-0, sort of fantastic, that's a different team. And because Max Fried, we're going to get to him in a minute, because Max Fried has been so good, that is why they were able to sustain staying around 500 when they were struggling offensively. Kyle Wright is another reason. He was actually better than Max Fried for the first month of the year. Statistically, he was. But he also gave a little extra added punch. When Morton was struggling, Anderson was struggling, and they had no idea who the fifth starter was, it was those two keeping the rotation afloat. And that's super important because when you are struggling, you need to have guys like that who can really get you out of some bad spots during the whole sort of run or average run that you were on. Next, I'll put like 2 of them together, and that was calling up Michael Harris and putting Spencer Strider in the rotation. These 2 guys are going to finish 1-2 in Rookie of the Year. Book it now. Go make a bet. If you haven't done it already, Spencer Strider was plus 500, 5-1 before he had a 12 strikeout performance. You probably missed the best value on it. So I would go with Harris from a value standpoint. We'll talk gambling later. But that said, these 2 they're going to finish 1-2. They have made such an incredible impact in so many different ways. And you can see it when Michael Harris makes a big catch or Spencer Strider gets on the mound and fans like 6 in a row or Harris hits a home run. Like there's just such an emotional lift for this team that it is nearly impossible to quantify. They have just meant so, so much. And maybe the biggest piece that I'll tell you here in a second, but first a word from our friends at Athletic Greens. Do you guys want better gut health? Because gut health is so important to making you a healthier, happier person. And I don't know if you guys like to take multivitamins or pills or whatever it may be, but Athletic Greens cuts through all that. It's lifestyle friendly. Whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, whatever it is, it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. It supports better sleep quality, recovery, mental clarity, and alertness. And it's the one thing that's the best thing about the Athletic Greens is the use of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. It costs less than $3 a day. So you're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit or cheaper than your different supplement that you're taking, your multivitamin. You're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, back to the Braves here on A to Z. So the biggest piece is got to be Dansby Swanson. And I know last week I was being crazy GM and proposing the idea of trading him. And I'm still not opposed to it in a philosophical sense. But that said, what he has done so far this year, and while he's not actually going to get an MVP vote per se, he's the best statistical shortstop in baseball this year from an offensive standpoint. I mean, you just look across the board. He has absolutely been everything that this team has needed when they needed it. He's played great defense. He has shown that he can come up with clutch hitting when you need it. He has done everything you want him to do about being a leader on this team, especially since, this has been a team that has kind of been a void of leadership since Freddie Freeman left. And I don't even like to say it is a void of leadership, but it's one of those things where when you look at what Dansby is expected of and what is expected of him. I think it's very important to acknowledge the fact that he has been the rock for this team going forward. So I think he is a huge, huge part of it. Now, the other thing I want to ensure is that we discuss the gambling aspect of this whole thing, because that's very important to me. The Braves are installed as favorites in this series, and at least favorites in game one. And actually, all this stuff is trending to the over, which is surprising to me, given the starters that are on the mound. So I have two bets placed. One of them, under 3.5 runs in the first 5, because I believe that Scherzer and Fried will start out strong, but I think there'll be a ton of emotional and a ton of physical energy exerted in what's going to feel like a playoff series. But I think they'll be sharp early, and then once you go to the bullpens, you'll start to see things change. And then, of course, I'm taking my typical under a half run in the first inning. This is one of these prop bets that's out there that you have to get on early. I got on it last night. Between Scherzer and Fried, there's no reason to believe that anybody should be giving up a run in the first inning in this contest. All right, coming up next, we will hand out a shovel of wisdom. And one NFL team leaked some information out there that reflects more poorly on them than it does the information they were trying to pass out. That's next right here on A to Z on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Search Locked. Welcome back to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. You search Locked On Sports Atlanta. Before we get to some NFL news that I found, well, more damning to one side than the other, let's hand out a shovel of wisdom.
Brace yourselves, because it's time for the shovel of wisdom.
Yeah, you know how we do it. We like to hand out shovels to people who said I did something stupid, whack them right upside the head. You can do so as well on my Twitter account, at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Just use the hashtag shovel of wisdom. And today my shovel goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, you may be wondering why it's going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But we found out that last night that the naming rights to their stadium, Heinz Field, are coming to an end, and Heinz is not renewing their stadium rights. Wow. And it's not so much that bothers me. Heinz Field is iconic. And I feel like it should be replaced by another condiment. But it's not. An insurance company, Acrisure, is now going to be what Heinz Field is. It's going to be Heinz Field. I've always called Heinz Field. But like French's, Golden, Sweet Baby Ray's, Frank's Hot Sauce, something like that. They couldn't get involved in this whole thing. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Acrisure. It's so disappointing. It's so incredibly, incredibly disappointing. I was so hoping for, something much, much better. Okay. Anyway, this segment of the show brought to you by our good friends over at Coffee AM. Over the weekend, there was a story leaked out, and it had to have been leaked by the Cleveland Browns, that Baker Mayfield, was, according to Chris Mortensen of ESPN, that the team, remember he said that the team wanted an adult in the room, which is why they traded him. And now the Athletic is saying in the post Baker Mayfield era that the Browns were talking about how Baker is viewed as childish and immature. His behavior annoyed teammates, divided the locker room. He was often difficult to coach. The fact that this is coming out now to me is kind of laughable, only because there was plenty, and I mean plenty of evidence to show you that Baker was all of those things that you just said he was, and you knew that, and yet you still, drafted him anyway. And let's just look at the short list, shall we? The short list of things that Baker did. Okay. And all of these are, when you look at it truly, they are off the field incidents. But what I mean off the field is like not actually things that happened in a football game, right? You can go back to when Baker had to run from the cops and there was video of it. right? There was the one game on the sidelines where he kind of grabbed his, and made a gesture at the other team's sideline. And then, of course, he had to run and stick the Oklahoma flag in the middle of the O in Ohio State in Columbus. Those last two things happened on the field, but they weren't part of the game. And it just goes to show you that whatever Baker's attributes were inside the game, that the ones that he displayed outside the game ultimately were more of who he was than who he wasn't. The problem for the Cleveland Browns is you knew all this and you ignored it anyway. That's why I think this news reflects more poorly on the Browns scouting department, the Browns front office, and their entire decision-making process, because everybody saw this. Everybody saw Baker was divisive, that he liked to fight, that he liked to be verbal, and sort of, when I say fight, I mean verbally, I guess, spar with people. I mean, heck, him and Colin Cowherd went back and forth nonstop before he ever took a snap in the NFL. But because that's a young man who wanted to be able to speak his piece instead of just putting his head down and going to play football. So there is a lot that reflects poorly on the Cleveland Browns here. And I want to get to one more piece of it here. But first, a good word from our friends at Coffee AM. Folks, I've told you about Coffee AM. I didn't know it when the package got to my house that it was going to have this kind of impact on my life, because it is some of the best coffee I've ever had. It's never tasted so good. And it's Atlanta-based small batch coffee roaster. And you can get coffee from all over the world. The freshest coffee you can get. Most of the coffees, by the way, roasted and shipped the exact same day or close to it. And they only roast current crop specialty grade coffee, and a huge selection. Coffees all over the world. Organic, fair trade, direct trade, expertly crafted blends, espresso flavored coffees, gourmet teas, and more. In fact, I had the coffee from Sumatra yesterday. I mean, it is fantastic. And the local roasting, it all goes right here in your backyard. So go to coffeeam.com/lockedon today. Take a look at their full menu of coffees, teas, and gift sets. That's coffeeam.com/lockedon. Use the coupon code LOCKEDON at checkout to get 15% off your order of coffees, teas, and gift sets. Your first order of coffee, teas, and gift sets. Coffee AM, the best small batch coffee roaster in Atlanta. Again, use the code LOCKEDON. Okay, back to Baker here. Because one of the things that really is that we see every single year that, happens, and you get the roar from the public and the fans and the social media world. Whenever a dumb story comes out, or is perceived like a dumb story, like, oh, this guy got written up for having weed in his dorm room, it was like, oh, that's no big deal. Well, you're right. It might not be a big deal. But when all these stories came out about Baker Mayfield, you could individually look at them and go, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like a college kid running from the cops. Oh, yeah. All he did was, it's inappropriate to grab your junk. You didn't know he was on TV. You didn't know anybody was going to see. Like, you can sort of try to rationalize all these things away. But there are two main factors. One, all of the incidents together matter. And two, when it's a quarterback, it's always important. Because the number one skill that you want to have in your quarterback between the ears is decision-making ability, right? What am I seeing? What am I reading? Where do I throw? What is the defense going to do? What if I do this? How does this work out? And all that's got to be done very, very quickly. And if you can't exude good decision-making ability, well, then, hey, it could be problematic. That's why it's kind of relieving to hear Arthur Smith talk about Desmond Ridder and how cerebral he is, because at least maybe the kid will make good decisions. Because making good decisions is all about what quarterback play is. All right, that'll do it for us today. Back tomorrow with a recap of Game 1 of the Braves-Mets series. Going to be huge. Sit back tonight, have a couple of cold ones, and enjoy what is going to be an excellent series on several fronts. Make sure you guys give me a follow on Twitter at Mark Zinno. Back tomorrow for another edition of A to Z right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. You search Locked On Sports Atlanta. You guys have a great day. Don't take a crap from anybody. See ya.